Hey guys, Coach Simon here. Now, I thought I'd do a wrap-up video of the jog because I've had quite a few people ask me, what did I learn from the actual trip itself? What were some of the things that I didn't expect that happened to me? And was there anything in particular that I would change? So, without further ado, let's get into it. First and foremost, 100% was my support crew were absolutely fantastic. Andy's route planning was massively on point. There was never a particular moment in my ride where I was thinking this is super dangerous, and we took roads which were pretty much free from traffic. Andy and Liz were on point with their forward planning, so when I got to my hotel rooms, my stuff was always in my room with food and some hydration. Anything I needed from a nutritional perspective was sorted out. So lunchtimes, if we couldn't stop at a place which we'd agreed at breakfast time, they'd sorted out so I could eat in the van. They really were absolutely on the money with their forward thinking. And trust me, when you're doing things like this, you need people around you who are basically thinking of everything ahead of the game. It really helped me just focus on riding the bike. But I think the most important thing about working with these two and having them as part of my team was that they were just good fun.
Come on, amateur! Don't be shit.
See you later.
Looking like a pro.
Almost. Maybe next time.
Nutrition and hydration. From experience, I pretty much know what I need to be taking on per hour. So I was taking as close to 90 grams of carbohydrates as I could. And that was in the form of 2 of these chews and some kind of energy bar. And I opted for a My Protein Flapjack, which has got about 37 grams of carbohydrate in it and a bit of protein to try and conserve muscle mass. In my water bottles, I had at least 1,000 milligrams of sodium in, and the electrolytes came in lots of different flavors, and that way I stopped getting flavor fatigue. But the most important thing to get across here was at lunch times, we were either stopping off at planned coffee stops with a decent lunch, or we were making sure that we had plenty of sandwiches and different things to choose from, so that I was making sure I was eating real food alongside these sort of like sporting products. But I won't lie to you, there were moments on the bike that I was proper hungry, and there was one moment where we stopped off and I ate a whole saurine loaf in about 1 minute.
Come to Velo Performance for your nutrition advice.
Eat a whole saurine bar.
Loaf, not a bar.
Some things I really didn't expect were saddle sores. So, I mean, I've done big rides, 150 mile bike rides, then into 200 mile bike rides and 200 mile bike rides, and I've been a bit rubbed, but I have never been this badly rubbed before. And I think that boils down to the fact that it absolutely tipped it down on day 2 and then dried up and then tipped it down again, and the same thing happened on day 3 and pretty much on day 4. Now I was using chamois cream to stop me from getting rubs, but that didn't quite work, so the next best thing was using some Pseudocrem, and that kind of stopped me from getting rubbed to absolute bits. But even with my usual swapping over of bib shorts on a day-to-day basis, I was still finding it really tough going. So eventually I had to resort to putting on 2 bib shorts to try and give me some extra padding and some relief from the really bad rubs that I got from day 3 onwards. On day 4, when it was absolutely chucking it down, I decided to swap over to the winter bike because it had proper mud guards on. In actual fact, in hindsight, really thinking about it, that was a bad decision because the saddle was different and it rubbed me even more. So yeah, saddle sores, they were a real pain in the ass. Lack of sleep was something else that I kind of expected, but not to this level. I don't normally sleep that well anyway, but I just never felt like I got proper rest each evening, so I always felt like I was slightly heightened in my sleep, which meant the next day I was getting on the bike a bit more fatigued than I expected. Now, physically, I felt like I could complete the challenge, but actually, I've never experienced a moment on a bike where I felt like I'd actually sleep while I was pedaling, and that really surprised me. Navigation on the Garmin 1030 was pretty easy. It's got a decent screen to it, but occasionally the satellite signal would take a little bit of time to upload onto the actual Garmin itself. So there were moments where I was playing a bit of Russian roulette guesswork, whether I should turn left or right. Occasionally I got it right, occasionally I got it wrong. On the last day, my fatigue levels were pretty high and I was finding it tough to try and stay awake in the first couple of hours. So I was using these aftershocks to play music and sing out loud to it. And do you know what, come to think of it, if I went through your village and I was singing out loud really badly out of tune, I apologise. The key takeaway really was that my fitness was in a really good place. So there was never a moment that I thought physically I wasn't going to be able to complete the challenge in the time that I'd set myself. But I'll be honest with you, my saddle sores on the last day were so bad that I pretty much resigned myself that I was going to have to climb every climb out of the saddle. Now luckily it didn't quite work out that way, but there were lots of moments where I was thinking if this gets above about 2 or 3%, I'm getting out of the saddle, which is kind of why I had an issue with my Achilles, because when I went to go and speak to my physio, he was saying that because I was so unnaturally climbing out of the saddle and moving oddly because I was in pain, he said that it was just firing up the Achilles in the wrong way, which is kind of why it puffed up. And that brings me to my shoes, because I thought these shoes would be okay, but in actual fact they're not wide enough. And I've spoken to Brian from the Bike the Body, who I'm going to go and see next week, and we're going to work out what shoes really work. Now he thinks a pair of Blake's, the wide fit, are going to be the right ones for me, so I'm really looking forward to that, because there are moments when I'm riding that it feels like someone's trying to chop my feet off. And trust me, when you're doing big miles back to back, that's no fun at all. I can't finish this video without talking about the BMC road machine. This bike is what people should be riding in sportives. Super comfortable, it's fast going up hills, it's super aero, and its descending ability is way past mine. Righty guys, that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed my insight into what I've learned and some of the things I've taken away from doing the Le Jog 5-day challenge. It definitely is one of the toughest challenges I've ever done on a bike.